I didn't think you were smart enough to pull this off.
He isn't. But Five is. Five has been playing puppet master all this time.
Okay. Whew. Okay. I'm on my way out. It's early in the morning. Good morning, Internet. Mr. Five here. I'm running really. Last night was this Republican National Convention. Rand Paul. Actually, I haven't had time to go to him. Google, can you help me out and run down who this guy Rand Paul is, U.S. Congressman?
I understood. Can you tell me about Rand Paul? My pleasure. Yeah. Randall Howard Paul is an American politician and physician serving as the junior United States Senator from Kentucky since 2011. He is a son of former U.S. Representative Ron Paul of Texas, who was a presidential candidate in 1988, 2008, and 2012.
So, this is my concern. This is a U.S. legislator who has a long lineage of family within government. His friend Cory Booker is also his black friend, who then allows him to co-sign on criminal justice legislation that this world sort of needs in a way, because it needs more reform and more change, right? Overhauling of this system of profiteering off of people's bodies. Now, these clips that I'm gonna show you, this man cringes from the people you are supposed to serve. You are physically revolted from being around those who are marginalized by society, which you are supposed to represent to help equal out that justice in your position in legislature. Nationally, you're speaking about impacting laws that impact these people. People are financially marginalized, racially disenfranchised, tired of the microaggressive white superiority. The sense that every action that you vote on is, these are the people it's impacting. And so the outrage and rage itself is a justified emotion, right? Rage means that you are so unjustly hurt that you want to enact that hurt in somebody else. But these are not people attacking him as you see him in this clip. You see how he's being protected and huddled, like as if these raging mob of 7 to 10 people is going to kill him or hurt him? Do you see how he's trying to quickly move away from them because it is a path that they have figured out through the madness of the 99%?
We have Rand Paul here in downtown Washington, D.C., just getting out of the Republican event at the White House, with Trump accepting the nomination for the Republican Party for the 2020 election. He is surrounded by a crowd of protesters here, as well as this line of Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police.
How is it that we allow the people who represent us to be disgusted by us? Why is it we would allow his very body movement His very language of talking to the officer like, hey, you're one of the good ones. You're going to protect me, right? Against this raging mob that disagree with the decisions that you're making running this country and having an input in this nation. And so, you know, this videos and these little clips that I'm showing you is a part of the problem. It's a part that we settle for that. Why do we have this person in a position of power? Don't get me wrong. He does impact a lot of legislation that is supposed to be fair, which is actually 1/3 of the shit that we're supposed to get. It's like Malcolm said, you stab me in my back with a 10-inch knife, you pull it out 6 inches, and then that's relief? No. I mean, America won't even admit that there's a knife in the back, more or less, that it even exists. This man, it's a shame. It's a shame to see him huddled in such fear from opposing protesters, teenagers, youth, people of color, those marginalized, unemployed, unsupported by the country, and have a right to verbalize that in a democratic format. Is that democratic format respected or allowed? Is there platforms where people? No. No. So I catch you coming from the White House and this mission and this meeting that's going to win you another presidency, another term of oppressing us with the decisions you're making, and I have something to say and you cower and run. This is not a respectable person to legislate. And I just had to say that because I wanted to make sure I get this out before tomorrow, before I leave. But it's vital that we demand and command respect from those who are supposed to represent us. It is vital that we look at them in a confident way that they are looking at us in a respectable format. Not literally running from us like we're attacking them and we're savages and they have to be protected, and that they're owned this position, that this position is inherited toward them because of some sort of inheritable greatness. This man is a physician and has understanding of medical health, mental health, and physical health, and he still agrees with incarceration as a perpetual punishment that is health risks. Oh my God, that's like 10 segments. Rand Paul. Why are we allowing this person to be in position of power? I gotta go. Yo.
Say her name! Say her name! Say her name! Say her name!
Y'all can take pictures and all that, but y'all gotta go through me, please. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Move back!
Move back!
You move the fuck back! Move back! Move back!
What's up, bro?
I got you.
A Senate impasse over a widely backed bill to designate lynching as a federal hate crime boiled over on Thursday in an emotional debate cast against a backdrop of widespread protests over police treatment of African Americans. Raw feelings were evident as Senator Rand Paul, who is single-handedly holding up the bill despite letting it pass last year, sought changes to the legislation as a condition of allowing it to pass. But the Senate's two black Democrats, Cory Booker of New Jersey and Kamala Harris of California, protested, saying the measure should pass as is. The debate occurred as a memorial service was taking place for George Floyd, a Minneapolis man who died after a police officer kneeled on his neck for almost 9 minutes, sparking the protests that have convulsed the nation. The legislative effort to make lynching a federal hate crime punishable by up to life in prison comes 65 years after 14-year-old Emmett Till was lynched in Mississippi, and follows dozens of failed attempts to pass anti-lynching legislation. The Senate unanimously passed virtually identical legislation last year. The House then passed it by a sweeping 410-4 vote in February but renamed the legislation for Till, the sole change that returned the measure to the Senate. Black lives have not been taken seriously as being fully human and deserving of dignity, and it should not require a maiming or torture in order for us to recognize a lynching when we see it, said Harris.
Not because I take lynching lightly, but because I take it seriously. And this legislation does not. Lynching is a tool of terror that claimed the lives of nearly 5,000 Americans between 1881 and 1968. But this bill would cheapen the meaning of lynching by defining it so broadly as to include a minor bruise or abrasion. Our nation's history of racial terrorism demands more seriousness from us than that. W.E.B. Du Bois wrote in his autobiography about the 1899 lynching of Sam Hose in Georgia. Du Bois wrote that after the lynching, Hose's knuckles were viewed on display at a store in Mitchell Street in Atlanta. His liver and heart were even presented to the governor of Georgia as a souvenir. Sickening, grotesque. We must remember the murders of Emmett Till, Raymond Gunn, Sam Hose, and the thousands of others whose lives were destroyed by the barbarity of the lynch mob. But this bill will not do that. This bill would expand the meaning of lynching to include any bodily injury, including a cut, an abrasion, or a bruise, physical pain, illness, or any other injury to the body, no matter how temporary. Mr. President, words have meaning. It would be a disgrace for the Congress of the United States to declare that a bruise is lynching, that an abrasion is lynching, that any injury to the body, no matter how temporary, is on par with the atrocities.
The idea that we would not be taking the issue of lynching seriously is an insult to Senator Booker, to Senator Tim Scott and myself, and all of the senators, past and present, who have understood this is part of the great stain of America's history. To suggest that anything short of pulverizing someone so much that the casket would otherwise be closed except for the heroism and courage of Emmett Till's mother, to suggest that lynching would only be a lynching if someone's heart was pulled out and produced and displayed to someone else is ridiculous. And on this day, the day of George Floyd's funeral, on this day, a day that should be a day of national mourning, Mr. President, in 2018, the Senate unanimously passed bipartisan anti-lynching legislation, which I proudly introduced with the only other black members of this body, Senator Cory Booker and Senator Tim Scott. It was a historic moment. It marked the first time in the history of our country that federal anti-lynching legislation had been passed by the United States Senate. It passed again by unanimous consent in 2019. Senator Paul is now trying to weaken a bill that was already passed. There's no reason for this. There's no reason for this. Senator Paul's amendment would place a greater burden on victims of lynching than is currently required under federal hate crimes laws. There is no reason for this. There is no reason other than cruel and deliberate obstruction on a day of mourning.
My colleague over there, Rand Paul, was one of the first hands I shook on this Senate floor. He is my friend. I've had too many conversations with him to question his heart. But I am so raw today, of all days that we're doing this. Of all days that we're doing this right now, having this discussion, when, God, if this bill passed today, what that would mean for America, that this body and that body have now finally agreed that if we pass this, it would not only do something substantive to make a difference on the books of the American federal system, but God, it would speak volumes to the racial pain and the hurt of generations. I do not need my colleague, the senator from Kentucky, to tell me about one lynching in this country. I've stood in the museum in Montgomery, Alabama, and watched African American families weeping at the stories of pregnant women lynched in this country and their babies ripped out of them, while this body did nothing. I can hear the screams, as this body and membership can, of the unanswered cries for justice of our ancestors. Every one of us is sensitive to that anguish. Every one of us is sensitive to that pain, as is the senator from Kentucky. One man, and I do not question his motives because I know his heart, one man is standing in the way of the law of the land changing because of a difference of interpretation. This doesn't talk about bruising someone. It's a difference of interpretation. Does America need a win today on racial justice? Does the anguished cries of people in the streets? I've had children break down with me this week, wondering if this would be a country that values their lives as much as white people's lives. I've had to explain to grown men this week that there's still hope in America, that we can make change in America, that we can grow and heal in America, that we can make this a more perfect union. Well, today is a day we can do it. One thing, one member, to yield for once, like he did in February of 2019, yield for one day and give America this win. Let us pass this piece of legislation today of all days. Let's give a headline tomorrow of something that will give hope to this country, that we can get it right,